Um, I can hear you. I don't hear you on stream though, so you just got to go to your settings real quick. No, no, your mic settings and your mic. Yeah. So where it says mic aux, that click that properties, and then device. Nope. It's right there. And select the one.
There we go.
It could do that sometimes. That's fine.
So as you could hear, you probably couldn't hear me, but you could definitely hear Raven. Little mic problem. And someday I'll remember to close the stream, this, the actual stream site before I go live. That'll someday we'll figure that out. But
You also have to share out the new link. The previous link doesn't work.
oh
So you just have,
no,
yeah, you have to adjust that.
oh man, I just sent it to so many people. Oh my goodness. All right.
It's fine. Working out the kinks.
Yeah. I don't really know why it didn't work before. I wonder if I hadn't waited long enough, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
Strange.
not too sure.
Um, honestly, honestly though, they can find the podcast. Everyone will find it. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, let's chat about shows because we both have played shows in the past couple weeks since the last podcast.
Yep.
So, how did your show go? When was it? Where did you play? How'd it go? What kind of music did you play? That kind of thing.
So it was last Friday, actually on the 24th. I believe that's last Friday. Yeah, last Friday. Um, it was a dubstep show for my other brand. Obviously played dubstep. Be
Mm-hmm.
kind of out of place to play anything else. Um, Sorry, I had to drink some water there for a second.
Oh, you're good.
Overall went pretty well. Um, love the energy of the crowd. It was really good. Um, got a got a hoya in there from everybody, so
Hell
that was pretty fun. Um, Other than that, basic show. Just ran through the set, killed it. Ready for the next one. So,
yeah. Hell
uh,
yeah. Hell
how
yeah.
about yours?
It was good, man. Played an opening slot. Played my own music mostly for like the first time. That was pretty sick. It's always fun to like hear stuff you've been working on the big sound systems. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a trippy experience though, like hearing your own music come out and having people enjoy it. It's like what we do is such a like clustered thing, you know. It's
Yeah.
kind of sit in our rooms as hermits and make beep boops. Um, and like coming out of that and like being part of a show, helping set up, like playing my set, like hanging out with my friends, like that was like really fun. Like that was cool. I wish I had had another like extra like 15 minutes. Cause like it was a 45-minute set and like uh
Yes.
my boy like kind of invaded the decks 15 minutes before I was supposed to be done, right? Which is like okay, yeah, that's fine. Like you want me to know that I have 15 minutes left and you're just going to stand there and hang out and watch me vibe out. Like that's cool. Um but I was kind of under the impression that we were going to go into a back to back and then do a back to back together.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna play." I was like, "All right." So I can't even play the other songs that I wanted to play in a mashup mix with you. So it felt a little. I mean, someday I'll come out of a gig just feeling $1,000, but or like $1,000,000, but.
Yeah.
As of right now, there's always just something that's left to be desired. So,
I mean, if you don't desire any, you have no reason to push forward. So,
right, exactly. Um, I'm just gonna post this in the Mermic server real quick. Elaborate on that.
um, well, I see it as like similar to like there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
Um, you always have to strive for better and always assume that there is better. especially in the music industry, it's so easy to get hit with a stalemate. I'm currently experiencing this with my brand.
Mm.
It's so easy to hit a stalemate
Mm-hmm.
that you have to find those opportunities to really push farther in a direction that may be uncomfortable for you, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe, in your eyes out of reach when it's very much achievable.
Yeah,
And the only way to do that is to, acknowledge like there is more to catch, there is way more, to grasp onto, and that can easily fall into shows. Um, in many ways, like, all right, I played a 45-minute set this time.
mm,
Let's see if I can get booked for an hour set.
right.
Or there's 20 people at this show. Let's see if I can get a show for 100 people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that will keep you moving forward and keep you growing as an artist rather
Mm.
than, staying put and being satisfied with, yeah, I'm okay with a room with 40 people every show, because that will not make you big.
Right.
That will never make you bigger. That'll leave you in that said stalemate that is very difficult to break out of.
Oh,
And
most
the only way
certainly.
to avoid getting in there is to never settle for
Right.
okay.
Right. Yeah, that's very poignant. Um, I too feel like I'm at a bit of a stalemate. You're much further at your wall that you're trying to climb is much further ahead and much higher than mine. Um, but I did set a goal for myself. Like I really tried to grind and like I was like I'm going to try and get 10 people at this show. Like I'm going to do everything I can to get 10 people to this show. And I got 6 people to the show. So like that's a D.
I mean, it's better than nobody showing up. And
Exactly. Or
stuff like
even
that,
worse, just your girlfriend being there.
yeah.
Because
I
then
mean,
there's
but
nobody there
still,
and you don't look cool.
but I mean, that also comes into play with like, all right, I got 6 people to come to the show this time. Maybe those 6 people, if I threw down hard enough and I really put on a good show, they're almost guaranteed to come back for the next one.
Right.
So now all you have to do is just remind them, like, hey, playing a show. And they're like, oh, bet, I'm coming out. And now you don't have to work so hard to get those people to come. And now you can focus on making those new fans come out and come watch your shows, come watch your sets, come be a part of your community, and be a very, key point in your fan base to continue to, grow as an artist. And being able to identify like, all right, where am I sitting now, and who what attention am I grabbing, and where can I grab more attention? That's very important. And I feel like, just as an artist overall,
Mm.
your fans will always start with your friends and family,
Yeah.
and you have to turn your friends and family into true friends. If you can't do that, you can't make it as an artist. Like, if your friends and family won't share your music to other people on their own without you asking,
Right.
who what makes you think other people are going to do it too? People
Yeah.
you don't know.
Yeah.
So the best way to do that is similar to like what I said with, getting people to come to shows. Start with your friends.
Right.
Get a few friends to go. Show them that you can give them the best show of their lives,
Right.
or at least try to. I mean, obviously they probably go to festivals, so it's very hard to compete with that with a
My
local club.
I think my big problem is I'm the only one of my friends that is into this sort of thing that I'm not
Mhm.
like doing this work with, right? So like a
Mhm.
lot of my friends right now are in the industry, right? So half of them that I would go to invite are going to already be there, but not for me.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Um,
And still though, um my family is very supportive of me making music. They would never come to a show.
Yeah.
Um
Oh, yeah. I mean, my mom's not
and
gonna share my experimental left-wing electro acid track. Like,
yeah.
like it's not until I start making music like Avicii that my mom is gonna be like, "Oh my God, my son's so talented," because she's the kind of woman that would, like, she would pick me up from my plays and be like, "You missed a line," and I'm like, "Mom, how do you even know?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, that's a good point because I do have friends that like I hit up all the time. Every time I have a show, I'm like, "Yo, I would love you to be here. Like, it would mean a lot if you came." Like, and it's starting to get tiresome. You know, like like at this point, I
Hmm.
don't even share. Like, it's the people that I share with that I don't expect to respond that seem to be responding more at this point.
Exactly. And that's like another thing too. Like you sometimes you gotta look in areas similar to that Julia Jordan masterclass we just watched. We
Mm,
gotta look at things that don't seem like they're gonna work. Because those are the things that are most likely going to work. Like reaching out to people that don't listen to EDM and you're like, "Hey, I have a show. You know, you want to come out?" You don't have to say it's an EDM show. You just got to say like, "Hey, I'm playing a show. You want to come watch?"
right.
And make it very brief, make it very simple, make it like intriguing for them. Give them less information so that way they want. And best way to do that, like I said, um, just tell them that you're playing a show. And believe it or not, I've done this before. I've asked people to come to shows of mine that don't even listen to this kind of music, and they continue to come to this day. Um, Even though they're not into dubstep, not into house music, they come because they enjoy the experience. And that's very important. You have to give your audience a good experience.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What we do is experiential sound design. So it's we are designing what we make and what we put together to be experienced as opposed to being consumed, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So like knowing that that's your like overarching mission, um it's it's like kind of gets left in the background. Sorry, my brain just did a thing. Um,
No.
yeah, it's like the underlying mission of being a DJ and producer is like delivering an experience, but it's also something that I think gets overlooked a lot. Like especially by people who just like only want to play their own tracks. Like
Mhm.
if everything you play like doesn't at least sound like something that they're able to connect with, then you're better off. In my opinion, you're better off playing a song that they're gonna know, some weird remix or something that you found online or whatever, like a crate dug version, and play
Mhm.
that in a way that's gonna lead them to your song, so it's a little bit more cohesive. Um, that's the experience part. A person who doesn't care about the experience is just going to play another one of their own songs one after another, no matter what their actual skill level is. You know what I mean? I think a healthy mix. Oh, go ahead.
No, that was my dog. Hey,
Mm.
go ahead.
Everyone say hello to Zoe.
She's a loud one, so don't mind her if you hear her in the background.
We welcome all doggos and kittens to the podcast. We are equal opportunity cats and dogs. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Experiential design. Da da da. Anyways, moving forward from that, there's so many like nuances of being a DJ and doing what we do as a job because there's a weird line like between being a DJ and being an artist. So like being an artist has two requirements. You must produce music, but then you must also be a DJ. For us at
Hmm.
least. Whereas
Um,
being a DJ
real
only has
real
one
quick.
requirement. Go ahead.
So somebody messaged me saying that there's a lot of echo on the stream. Do you have the stream volume open by chance
On
on YouTube?
yeah, on the other
Oh,
one.
oh, never mind. Okay, never mind. You can continue. My bad.
Why was it? What was the echo?
Uh, he thought he was hearing double, so we settled that out. I guess it's not an issue
Oh,
anymore. So,
okay. Maybe it was just like the stream or something. Like I did have a page open, but it was it like the picture hadn't changed or anything like that, so I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it was active. But could have sworn I muted
Okay.
it. Oh well. I hope that doesn't trash the. Well, you know what? The recording will be good,
Yeah,
so we'll be
that's
fine.
fine.
Yeah, we'll be fine. We're still working out the kinks. It's only the second episode. I'm not stressed. Um,
Yeah. Continue.
yes. Cha cha cha. What? No, you know what? I can't even remember what I was gonna say. Um, but how did your set go? Let's talk about this. That doesn't get talked out a lot about. Like, how did your set go technically, and like from a artist perspective? Not talking about what you did on the decks, but like, how were the people that you worked for? How was the lighting? Was the equipment good? Like that kind of stuff.
All of it was phenomenal.
Excellent.
Um, for at least the room of that size. Sound was great. Visuals were great. Um, I wouldn't put anything at phenomenal just
Mhm.
quite yet. Um, Obviously it's a smaller venue, so being able to achieve those like higher, quality productions will be a lot more difficult for a company of that size. But for the size given and the audience given, it was really great production. The people were phenomenal. Um, Shout out to the bartenders for the free water. That was amazing.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah, other than that, it was just a really good community, really, really good environment to be in.
That you know what?
Um,
You just
and I,
sprung a really good question. What are your thoughts? Should a venue always have free water?
I think it shouldn't be limited to artists getting free water.
Right.
I think everybody in the crowd should also have free water. Um, I just because of the environment, people are dancing, people are essentially exercising,
Right.
and they need to stay hydrated because I mean, people get like worn out, they get exhausted really quickly,
What's up,
and
Yasukin? They say we love free water.
yes, that's my
Yes.
buddy.
Wh-
He's
What's up, dude?
such a good guy. Um,
Was he the one who told us we were echoing a little bit?
yeah.
Is it
So
Gucci now? Just double
yeah,
checking.
it's Gucci now.
All right.
But yeah, I just think like in the eyes of like just hospitality for the venue, I think it's just like really important to have water at hand for, just even customers,
Mm.
in the sense of a business.
Mm.
Uh because like I was saying, like everybody's like exercising. They get worn out. I mean, a show for like even a local show for like 8 hours or 6 hours, I mean that's a lot.
Mm.
That's and you're in a very close, compact environment. It can get hot too. It can get exhausting. Like you got to keep your people, refreshed, and that'll keep them coming back
Right.
because they'll know like, yeah, these guys got water. We can like party all night, and we're not gonna have any issues. We can stay, in the groove the whole time. Stay up, by the DJ the whole time, and just enjoy the show.
Mm.
And if we get tired, take a break, get a water, and then we can go right back at it.
So
And I feel like that's very, very important.
oh, I had it open on YouTube and Discord. Hey, no worries, man. Um,
Skill issue.
I was gonna say it, but I don't know him. um, yeah. So I read a very interesting set of allowed items and not allowed items. I don't remember what event I was looking at, but it was interesting. They allowed hydro packs, but you couldn't bring in like a hydro flask or a Nalgene or anything, which
Hmm.
that annoyed me because like and it was like kind of a smaller like it was like a massive, I think it was like a 1 or 2 day thing, um
Hmm.
the kind of thing where like I wouldn't want to bring my hydration pack, but I would definitely want to bring a water bottle, you know.
Hmm.
um Dude, at Izu, the lines for water were so long and the spigots were so terrible that we just started buying bottles of water and dumping it into our hydro packs because the water wasn't super expensive. It was only $4, which at a
Hmm.
festival is phenomenal. Um, it was bottled water, which, you know, always good,
Even better.
even better. better than New York City water for sure. Um, and then third off, and this is a hack for anybody that goes to festivals. When you go buy water, they're usually in like a big thing of ice. Open your Camelback and ask them to put ice in your Camelback. A, super refreshing water, and B, it lasts a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It's a pro tip. Um, yeah, it's funny. Water is such a heavily contested thing, and I don't understand it. Like, yeah, water should be free, but I get why it's not at certain places. Like, I've been to these like top tier bougie clubs, and like, you're not supposed to go in there if you're just drinking water. Like, that's not the point of the club. So they're trying to keep you from doing that.
Yeah.
You know? But I'm the kind of guy that goes to this club, that gets bottle service, and then orders a Shirley Temple. So,
I mean, even then, like, even for the people that are drinking, like, you should still have free water at your disposal to at least help them if they're drinking a lot, to avoid like them getting sick. Like stuff like that. It's just like, again, it's hospitality. I think it's just something that all venues should like really take heavy consideration into.
And there are laws that govern this kind of thing too. It's like there's a fine line between where you are required to offer free water and where you aren't.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of places do it. I just haven't experienced that myself. I haven't seen that happen.
You know what would
So
be a crazy racket is putting on your rider that you want a percentage of the water sales.
that would be a weird thing to put on there. I don't know if that would work.
Like, let's say let's say you have a long-term residency and you ask for 5% of the nightly water sales.
Or even better, instead of trying to make profit off the water, you put on the rider that the venue must provide water for all the guests.
Yeah, that's the nice way to do it, Raven. You're right.
And I mean, that would completely contradict everything we just said. If it was like, yeah, dude, give me some money for that water.
Well, my thought is people are selling it anyway, right? So like, why not, like, at venues where like that's not an option, right? Like bougie ass venues, da 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 da. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, if there's no way for you to get them to serve free water, then you should make money on the water.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But that's more just like, I think that's more for like, that would be more for like a long, like I said, like a long-term residency kind of thing where like you identify the problem, bring it up to them, and they're like, nah, and you're like, all right, fine, you're gonna take money from my guests that I'm having come in to watch me play. Like, if they're buying it from you, I should have a piece of that. Like, if you're selling my merch, I get a piece of the merch prices. You know what I mean? It's like, but trying to like rationalize that to a venue owner, I think would be absolutely A, hysterical, and B, impossible.
I don't know. I feel like if you have the right, like, for example, if you have a manager on your team and you have your manager come along to your shows to help manage the shows, I'm sure a manager can really put a foot down and be like, for example, like my manager Tristan, like, I'm sure, like, given the circumstances, I could tell him like, hey man, I want, my audience to be refreshed.
Right.
I want them to be, hydrated the entire show. Because I feel like that's just that's good hospitality.
That's good. Yeah, for sure.
Ribcage. Yeah, I just feel like that's very important, and I think it needs to be like, I think it just needs to be standard for any EDM show. Maybe hip hop shows I can understand might be a little different, or metal shows might be a little different. I still think because of like mosh pits and everything, people still need to be hydrated because they're moving around a lot. They exercise. It's very important. Very important to stay hydrated. And if venues don't do it, please bring your own water if they let you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. My thing is like, don't tell me what kind of water receptacle I can bring in to get your free water. Like, they don't want to sell you a water bottle because they have water bottles, or they don't want you to bring in a water bottle because they have water bottles, you know. But they're selling plastic non-reusable water bottles, whereas you have like it said that you couldn't bring in like Hydro Flask and shit. That's when we all started. Like, that to me is ludicrous. Like,
Yeah.
it makes no sense at all.
It's like at that point, I've been to a couple shows where I've almost got desperate enough to take like a water bottle I've already finished and go into the bathroom and fill it up in the sink.
Oh, I have 100% done that.
And the only reason why I don't do that is because like I don't know how old the building is. I don't know how clean the pipes are. Like, I don't trust it. And obviously you can do your research on that, but who's gonna do that after that thirsty?
I don't know about you, but like, if the water around me hasn't killed me yet, I don't think it's gonna.
We don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be different out there, and you know, like here it's a little bit. Everything's pretty updated.
I just got a weird thing about tap water.
I can understand that, and more than one. I've met many people that are like that. Like, Tori's kind of like that.
It actually gets me sick half the time. I think it's because of all the minerals and stuff in the water. It really does. It's not really like, if you don't drink tap water regularly, I feel like it really can like mess up your system, you know, and just like mess up your whole digestive tract. Give you like diarrhea for a few days. Sorry to put that in. But
this is a children's show. Yeah, I know. They think farts are funny. Ribcage says he hopes we have a wonderful day. We are having a wonderful day. We're glad you're here to listen to us talk.
Definitely having.
Yeah, it's a good day.
Pretty productive.
Yeah, I was out of bed and in the studio before 9 o'clock today, dude. I was like,
goals, man.
Going hard.
I struggle getting out of bed at 9 o'clock. I mean, sometimes I'll get up at like 5 and then I'm like, yeah, I regret this, and go back to bed.
So my girlfriend gets up, goes to work 9 almost every day, right? So it's inevitable that she wakes me up while she's getting ready. And like, honestly, I feel guilty if I stay in bed when she goes to work. So I'm like, all right, Tori's going to work. Time for me to go to work too, you know, and then I just come in here and let my brain do the thing.
So, what is your oh, excuse me. What is your recommendation for any new DJs that like haven't DJ'd shows yet and would like to? What would you recommend that they, you know, prepare with and, you know, get going with? Be able to be as ready as possible and have the least amount of stress on in the moment.
Well, securing the gig is the hardest part, right? So like, once you've secured the gig and you know that you're going to have this gig, you know how much time it's going to be, you know where it's going to be, and you know the kind of music you're going to play. The rest is just the creative preparation part, you know, like I'm going to assume this person already has decks and has at least a basic knowledge of DJing, yes?
We'll make that assumption.
Okay. So, because that changes what I would say. Like, if you're just getting started in DJing and you think you should be in a club, go watch actual DJs on YouTube. James Hype, Alice in Wonderland, Dr. Fresh. There's 3. And recognize that the skills are just as important as the tunes you pick. So you could have the best song selection ever, but if you can't beat match 2 records and EQ them to transition, then you're no better than Spotify. So that would be my main thing if that wasn't the case. But since we're assuming that this person is at least like, let's call him a green belt at DJing, the next step is probably my favorite part, is like, you pull the tunes, you find new tunes, you bring your best stuff that you love, that's your favorite, and it matches the vibe of the event you're going to play or the venue you're going to play, and then just run it back. just hop on the decks, have fun, play those songs that you know you want to play and that you really like, map out how you want the set to kind of go. This is assuming it's like a 1 hour set. It's not a 4 hour or 5 hour extended bar set. So that's a whole nother beast. But
Yeah,
yeah,
those shows do get very difficult to maintain
yes.
after a whole.
But since it's like a set, a method that I learned a long time ago from Carl Cox is he said, before every gig, I pull 100 records, and I take those 100 records with me to the club. And if I can't make a set as I go out of those 100 records, then I don't deserve to be paid as much as I get paid. And like that really hit me because I used to be like a hyper, like very like specific, like hot cues and everything, like where I was putting stuff, and getting away from that and doing it sort of a little bit more free-handed definitely opened me up creatively, but it also gave me a better focus once I came back to like planning my sets more to the beat, because I have started putting out my own music. So it's sort of like you kind of have to transition from one into the next to come back to the initial so that you can learn the creative aspects of crate digging and set development while you're working on your DJ skills.
And I think a very big thing add on to that to make your sets more interesting is definitely the creative use of different tracks into a single instance.
Yep.
And I'll break down what I mean by that. So let's say you have a really good verse of one track. You love the verse of one track, but you don't like the build up or the drop. And you like the build up of another track, but you don't like the drop. And you use another drop to really merge all that together. This is where like that more advanced, DJing can come into play, and just understand. You can make these pre-made. You can do pre-made mashups. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
If it'll make your life easier on stage, do it. And I do it all the time. I make mashups because I just don't want to go through the stress of like having to make sure like everything's on time. I'm doing everything very specific, and that everything's gonna line up how I want it to and play out how I want it. So just making like simple mashups, as long as like your whole set's not a mashup, there's nothing wrong with that. A couple mashups here and there pre-made won't hurt. If you want to do some live, do some live. Go for it. But I would definitely say using your creative like instincts. If you are a producer, use your producer instincts as a DJ.
Right.
If you feel like it would be dope to, okay, I'm coming out of this house drop and I want to go into a hip hop, break. Go into a hip hop break. Trust your instincts, do that. Because if you're feeling that, the crowd's gonna love it.
Yeah,
Because
sometimes go ahead. You finish. I got something to add.
Not only are you playing for your audience, but you're playing for yourself. If you're not having fun, your audience isn't having fun. And that's very important. You could look like the most serious DJ on stage, but all that matters is that you're having a set that you're enjoying, and is translating to the crowd.
Yeah, 100%. What was I gonna add? Shoot, I don't remember. This happened a lot today. Yeah, I agree with the fun part. Like that's really what's important. Like the two for one method, I think is a good method. Like 2 tracks for me, 1 track for you. 2 tracks for me, 1 track for you. I think that can help with the energy. But when you're first starting out, I feel like I was the most creative for the first like 3 years of me DJing. Right? I'm sure it was sloppy, and I have a couple of recordings from back then, and it's very cringe. But having that be my initial development, sort of like the natural YouTube university spread out of skills. Like, oh, I like that skill, I'm gonna learn that. Oh, I like that skill, I'm gonna learn that. As opposed to starting specifically with the basics, definitely gave me a better scope of where I wanted to go as my mixing went on. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like the the creativity, I knew the limits of the creativity that I could bring and still have it sound good. And then from there, I went doubled back and was like, okay, I need to learn more in depth these basics, things like beat matching with the pitch faders and beat matching with by ear with without like any beat grids and doubles and double drops and juggling and like all those like they're sort of tricks, but they're like also very fundamental. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the learning those things and having those things forever in your back pocket allows you to save yourself if you get creative and it doesn't fucking work, because that happens. Like if you're not playing a predetermined, rehearsed, blocked out set, like the likelihood of things not necessarily sounding exactly how they sound in your head from the speakers is very high. So having the basics on lock makes sure that at its core level, whatever your transition or trick is fundamentally sound.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with setting up a pre-made set. Obviously not pre-recorded. That's a
Don't be that
whole,
guy.
yeah, that's a whole different thing. That defeats the purpose of DJing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it muddies the view of the public of DJing, cuz that's what they think we
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's, I would say, like, my biggest struggle when moving from house DJing into dubstep DJing were stuff like cue points.
Mm.
Because in house, I mean, cue points really weren't as important um as they are in, dubstep.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's obviously because house has extended mixes, dubstep really doesn't. I mean, rhythm has extended mixes that you can tie in. But for the most part, it's literally just you DJ like a Spotify release track. And that can tie in the same thing with like hip hop, because hip
Mm.
hop, you're pretty much just DJing a sound,
It's the
Spotify release
hits
track.
and what's hot now. Because I've played a lot of hip hop sets. It's like I always say, like whenever anyone asks me to play hip hop, I'm like, okay, but I only play the hits, and they're like, all right, you know. But like at a certain level, I had to be like, okay, I'm not a hip hop DJ. I don't need to follow this music as heavily as I am. So like
Mhm.
in the era of like Tory Lanez and like Offset and like that movement, I was kind of out of hip hop. So coming back into playing more open format dance sets, I had to like reacclimate myself with the current state of hip hop. And gosh, was I disappointed.
Um, yeah, and
It was tough to
I
find
think,
good stuff, but Pop Smoke though.
yeah, I definitely think um when it comes to setting up cue points,
Mm,
for anybody that's not experienced with cue points or doesn't know how to set up a cue point, set up what helps your transitions work smoothly and what you feel like gives you enough time to make the transitions you want without being stressed out. I
mm,
personally give myself no time. It's literally like the drop's hitting, 8 bars in, I'm dropping my next cue. I have no time to think or second guess what I'm doing.
right.
And I do that because it keeps my sets interesting. It keeps the energy high 100% of the time. Sometimes I'll kill the energy just to give the crowd a break,
Mm,
depending on, the crowd. But as of recently, I mean, I haven't had like a low energy crowd yet, so I've been sticking to this method because it works for me.
mm,
Um, Obviously, like, don't get anything set in stone. Make sure your cue points are flexible. A lot of people set up cue points to where they only work if in this order. Like they won't work in any other order. Make sure they're flexible that so
Mm-hmm.
you can like, okay, well they're not fucking with hair out. Let's try rhythm, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be able to have your cue points flexible enough to where you can make that adjustment on the spot without stressing yourself out. So having predictable cue points, I think, is the most important part to DJing. Difficult music. Um, I wouldn't even say dubstep's really a difficult thing to DJ. It's more
It's
so understanding the fundamentals of how where the track's energy lies. So, but house music, it's a whole different story. You got extended mixes, so set up your cue points for your favorite parts in those tracks or the parts that you feel like the crowd will like most. That is definitely important. So like really good verses, really good build ups, really good drops. Those are good places to put cue points in.
Yep.
If you want
Build
high
outs
energy,
build ups are a
fast,
great place to transition. If you're
yes,
already set and locked in, like going into the build up, it's so easy to just be like zoop bop boom new drop. You know?
yeah. And that's how all my dubstep sets are set up. They're
Mm-hmm.
literally build up, drop, build up, drop, build up, drop. And it sounds like a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot because the energy's constant and
Mm-hmm.
the vibe is constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, like I was saying, crowd can get tired. So like at some point you may have to slow down your set depending on how long your set is if you want to keep them engaged the whole time. Typically 30 to 45-minute sets, you don't have to do it that much or at all, depending on your crowd. But longer sets, like your hour or 2 hour sets, you're gonna need those cool, or they will get exhausted and they'll go sit down, they'll go have a drink or something, and then your dance floor is gonna be empty
Mm-hmm.
before the end of your set.
Yeah, it's a nuanced thing. Um, I think that there is a time in every DJ's journey where you kind of come to the realization that you've been doing it long enough that that actual mixing part, like the fundamentals on the mixer, not necessarily in terms of the faders, but like your EQing and your filtering and using effects and stuff like that, you're going to start to have your own way of really doing that the way you like that it sounds. Um, and I think that's super important too, is like developing a style that works for you. Like that sounds the way you want it to sound, that fits with your skills, and it fits with your overall vibe while you're on the decks. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, I sometimes I get like I've recently been trying to be better about this, but like I get locked in on the mixer because my transitions are usually anywhere between 60 and 32 bars long. I like long transitions because I want to show off that I'm a DJ, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a little bit for myself. Uh, but I've got some feedback before, like I've gotten both sides of the feedback that nobody wants to hear the amount of mixing that you do, so just be smarter about where you drop things in so that it's not as much mixing. And then I've also got the you're going too fast, stop mixing so fast that you're not letting people breathe. So like there both sides of the coin exist. So I'm not saying flip it and choose one. I'm saying like pick a side of the coin to specialize and then always have the other side in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm. And
That's
a lot of that
good.
again is dependent on the crowd.
Mhm. I
If
mean
if
that's
you like fast mixing, do fast mixing, but then analyze your crowd and realize, okay, they're starting to slow down. They're not dancing as much. They're not headbanging as much. Whatever genre are you DJ, and just be like, okay, let's slow it down, or vice versa. You're playing slow. People are starting to get bored. Speed it up a bit. Go a
mhm.
little fast.
Mhm.
Transition more, and do a lot more interesting stuff. Don't forget, like again, mashups really good for jaw dropping transition.
Mhm.
Um, you can get like really crazy stuff if you do like a Backstreet Boys, verse into like a Martin Garrix styled, you know, build up, and then boom, you come out of nowhere with drum and bass. That's fucking mind blowing. Like
Right.
nobody's gonna expect that.
Right.
And if you make it pre-made, I mean that would be a lot easier to DJ, obviously, than if you were doing it live, because mixing drum and bass with house music, pop music is very difficult.
Yes.
Um, Not saying people can't do it. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the world that can do it flawlessly. I personally can't. That is way out of my skill level. But the most important part is making sure your crowd has a good time.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a
If you do
skill
that,
unto
you'll get more
itself.
people. Yeah. And don't ever forget, like, DJing is an art. It's just like producing music. If you
Hmm.
can't create an art in your set, like you're no better than those SoundCloud rappers that go no. And I'm not throwing shade.
No.
It's a term.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's, and
Well, there's the different. That's the thing. So I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but COVID put this idea in a lot of people's heads that they were really good DJs. And
yeah.
I think we're seeing a bit of the fallout of um, bedroom DJs who have been DJing for 2 years now, and they can definitely mix, and they've downloaded a shit ton of music, and they're like, all right, I'm gonna be a club DJ, like I can work from home and be a club DJ. Let's go, right? But then
Hmm.
they get to the club and they're not greeted with open arms by the rest of the people that have been grinding for the past 10 years to even get to the position where they can throw a show that you could come to, right?
Hmm.
Like those people are kind of like helping separate the cream from the milk. So
Hmm.
COVID helped us in two ways, I think. One, it exposed like so many DJs were so quick to hop into like Twitch and streaming and stuff like that and doing streaming shows. It showed that DJing as an art form is viable for way more than just clubs and music festivals. Like people like it in their homes, you know? And
Hmm.
two, it really showed from the older heads, like so like people that are a little bit older than me, um, it showed which one of them were really serious about the art of DJing as opposed to being just about like throwing the parties and being the person with it telling people to 1 2 3 jump, you know. So the that dichotomy and that like situation in the scene has opened up some space for the producer DJ to sort of step into, and I think that's something we've been missing.
Hmm. And I feel like too that I would like to see more like DJs that are artists perform more on lineups than um DJs that DJ. Um
That's literally the like one of the biggest reasons. I don't want to say the only reason because I do enjoy producing music. It is very fun for me. I love the grind. Um, but that it's the reason I even considered being a producer is because I wanted those gigs. Like I wanted to
mhm.
play, and I
and
never felt like as just a DJ I was able to play. You know?
and yeah, and I was under the impression too, like when I first started producing EDM music, I actually had no idea what the hell DJ was. And so I was under the impression that you only get these shows if you make music.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that people were getting these shows because they just spin tracks that aren't there. I assumed that you had to spin tracks that were only yours
Mm.
to get these shows.
Mm-hmm.
And once when I came to the realization, like, oh, you can spin other people's tracks too, as long as they're not on the, that is okay. Like you can't spin a Martin Garrix track when Martin Garrix plays after. Like that's no,
No.
that's highly frowned upon. But like that opened my eyes in the sense of like that DJing is an art, and it's not just about who you are, it's who what you can provide.
What do you bring to the table?
Exactly. And it's it's not just like it's not like going to a metal show or going to like a hip hop show where they're only playing their music. Like you're going there to hear a bunch of music, just danceable music,
Mm-hmm.
headbangable music. And the only way to get that is with a good DJ nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say, like, we need like more, you know, artists that are DJs on lineups because I'm starting to feel like it's starting to get a bit washed,
Yeah.
where DJs are just strictly DJs are only playing only popular music,
Mm-hmm.
and
Which
they're
is the
not
exact
exact.
opposite of what a DJ is supposed to do.
Yeah, and I feel like all these artist DJs that I notice are on lineups are only playing music I've never heard in my life. And
Right.
it's like I'm always having conversations with them after their set, like, yo, what was this song X, Y, and Z is around, this far in on your set. They'd be like, oh yeah, it's this track. And I'd be like, yo, can you send me that? That song was awesome, and it's not only just an art for other people, it's like an art for actual musicians because you get you market your own music that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten like so many original tracks from people because of like stuff like that where they drop the track and I'm like, yo, that is amazing. I love how you mix that. It sounded great live, and just wanted to know what track it was because I was gonna go download it on like Beatport or something. And it was like, no, that was my track. I made that like a few weeks ago. And it's like, no shit, send it. I'll play it. But next set,
Right.
got you. You know? And it's huge marketing game. Not only just like an experience, but marketing.
Yeah.
So huge
If you
without
know a
realizing.
DJ that wants more tracks, why wouldn't you just give them your tracks? Like, record
Especially if it's
record
your
sales are
tracks.
for the crowd. Like
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, you can put it up there and some DJ who doesn't know you and likes it is going to buy it, you know what I mean? But if the people around you that you're DJing with, cuz I don't care who you are, like every DJ has a pack of DJ homies that all get together and throw down, you know? Um
Mm-hmm.
so if those people don't have your music on their USB, you need to be a better friend.
Yeah. And for people that don't know this, if other DJs play your music live and you're aware of it, you can actually go on like a PRO website. If you're not already established on one, you should definitely get established on one. And you can collect writers' credits for your tracks being played live. And it's it's a lot more. I can tell you right now, it's a lot more money than streaming royalties.
Right.
And I mean, that's why it's like I encourage artists on the
Mhm.
lineup because when you start trading music like that, it helps everybody, not just financially, but like overall socially. Like it
Mhm.
helps people's social media because you're playing like really good music by people that made it themselves and nobody's ever heard it.
Right.
So it's like you're creating this new environment, you're creating this new community and scene that hasn't existed.
Yep. It's everything's connected in this business. It's difficult to do this on your own. Not to say it hasn't been done before, but you got to recognize that the big heads like the Tiestos, the we always use him as an example, but like the Tiestos, the Martin Garrixes, the chain smokers, like these people all have teams of people around them that are helping them with their music, that are keep making sure their music is on brand, that they're working with the right people, that the features that they have are fit their brand and things like that. Um, so you can sort of play the role of your own label and be like, okay, what kind of music fits with the brand I'm trying to project? What kind of people do I want to be around that will make sure that my brand stays at the forefront of the art that I make as opposed to being overshadowed by the people putting on the art? Because that's a whole nother discussion. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and also, how can you interface with the greater scene that's around you and with the sort of other people that might come into your circle looking to collaborate, how can you make sure that that stuff's copacetic and on brand for you? I think that
Mm-hmm.
is a huge. I didn't get that until recently. I, Once I started to like really be like, no, like I need to play sets of this caliber, of this sound in places that they will work, or else I'm playing completely off brand. And
Mm-hmm.
playing off brand can sometimes really help because it makes you look versatile and it gives you opportunities to meet people that you maybe wouldn't have met. But on the other hand, it, like you said earlier, it sort of washes your brand because branding is so specific. Like
Mm-hmm.
like you think of Fisher, right? His brand is extremely specific. John Summit, his brand is extremely specific. And niching on the creative aspect of your brand, like taking the time to coming up with a theme, coming up with motifs, coming up doing the backstory. Like for me, I did like hours and hours and hours of research of how I wanted my brand to go, because that that legwork you do now takes away the question down the line when you have the opportunity to use it, right? And that way,
Mm-hmm.
nothing gets diluted when you start working with bigger people and in bigger projects and with bigger labels. Because you can go to them and be like, look, this is my brand. I've already established this. This is what I'm doing. And any label worth its salt is going to take that work and be like, okay, this is what they've done so far. Now let's try and take that brand to the next level.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing with labels. Um, when it comes to signing with a label, if they can't already push what exists and they feel like they can only push what they want to push, that's not a label. It's a promotional agent.
Right.
Labels should be able to push everything about your brand easily.
Right.
And if they cannot achieve that, then you shouldn't be signing any contract realistically. They should be able to open up new opportunities for you
Yeah.
as a whole.
100%. And that's where the predatory aspects of the record industry come into play, because like music is a business, records are an industry. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
stipulation like is very important for young artists to understand. Um, because when you start talking about records and you start talking about tracks coming out where and who you're working with, this, that, the other thing, that's all dependent on the machine that you're part of.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the shows and the what was the so music is the business. No, records are the industry, music is the business, right? So it comes down to playing live music and being involved in the music scene and that sort of thing. Like that's the business. That's the eye to eye, shake hand, like let's do personal business. I'm invested in you, you're invested in me. Let's work together kind of thing. Whereas it on the record side, it's how does me working with you benefit me, and how does you working with me benefit you, and how can our labels figure out what's best for both of us. And
Mm-hmm.
that machine aspect, if you have a good brand going in, becomes much less convoluted, and you're
Yeah,
much less likely to be um, I don't want to say railroaded, but like your project won't deviate when you reach that level. It'll stay constant.
100%.
So is there any other advice you would give to uh, up and coming, newer, let's call them mid level um, DJ? Like in terms of playing live?
Just have fun.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
If you're not having fun, the crowd's not having. So, yeah, definitely just enjoy yourself.
Hell yeah. That is a great. I think that's a really good way to end it. You know, we just had a very in-depth conversation about uh, the specificities of taking your game to the next level. I think we just dished on them.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, let's call it a day then. Thank you, everybody who's here or who was here. If you're just joining us or you're watching the VOD, the podcast will be going up on all platforms, the audio. But I'd like to get at least one completely perfect show done before we start releasing those, because I got to do some editing on the front, and I want to put in some fun little tidbits for the people who listen. So thanks again, and we'll see you when we see you, some Thursday in the next couple of weeks. We haven't worked that out yet. But
Yeah.
thanks for everything. Say bye. Say bye, Hextide.